Good afternoon to you, Jason here, Birchfield Family Farm, Oxford, Ohio, grass-fed Red Devon cattle, grass-fed St. Croix sheep, and chickens in a rotational grazing system here, under 5 acres. That we do have our sheep back on a swale right now, and that's about an acre of ground back there, so maybe we say under 6 currently. I've got a good word for you today. This comes from Ephesians chapter 6. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Well, the winds of change are here. We are changing seasons here. Been down in the upper 30s at night. And, hitting 50s, maybe 60s during the day. So, mid-October, it's that time. It's always a welcome change here on the farm from the hot and dry this year anyway. With these 2 droughts that we dealt with here, grazing through those. Got a lot I want to do today, take you around and show you. A lot to talk about, really. I need to get cattle back on paddock 1. I want to start this. This will be the 6th rotation for the season. We started back in May, and the way it's worked out, we've grazed about a full cycle through our 4.75 acres about every 30 days is the way it's worked. So here in October here, we're going to start this 6th rotation. I got cattle in a couple different groups here. I'm going to try and get them together. Get them back on paddock 1, and then I want to talk some about set stock grazing versus rotational grazing. There's all kinds of names now for rotational grazing, adaptive grazing, total grazing, mob grazing, you name it. The point here, though, for us is when I say rotational grazing, I'm talking about just moving animals with some kind of frequency. Keeping them on the move, and I love our setup here on the farm, because you guys know we do own just under 60 acres, and so we rent quite a bit of ground to another local farm family that set stock grazes a lot of our ground here. And so what's interesting is I have a front row seat to be able to compare rotational grazing with just when you just turn animals out. And I'm able to see the impact on the ground, the impact on the animals, and it's a very curious setup. And so I want to share some of that with you here today. With the cooler temperatures at night, really wrapping up stuff in the garden here. I just want to take just a brief minute and talk through our some of the grazing we do actually on the garden and that plan for the winter here. Okay, so garden wrapping up here with frost. Any night now. We haven't seen frost yet, but it's coming. But basically we use the black plastic here. We've been doing that for a couple of years, and once the crop stops producing here in the fall, we take up the black plastic and I sow an overwintering mix, and that's what this is. You got some barley in there, some rye, mainly cereal rye, but I think there's some rapeseed, 5 or 6 different species. Let's see if I can find that label and put it up here. Pulled our sweet potatoes over here. She did some pumpkins, the eating variety of pumpkins, and some butternut squash and stuff over here. That did really well, but we just pulled all that black plastic up, and then I like to sow that overwintering mix, put some hay and some straw down, and keep that wet. And this has had about maybe 6 weeks or so of growth here, and that's really ideal before the first frost. I think this will still go here, but I don't know. We're gonna try it down on this end. We did a later seeding last year, and it was mainly just the rye that came on. But what I want to talk about, we had a tremendous amount of success this year with our sweet potatoes. I'll show you that video right here. Look at that. That is a sweet potato. Huh? Yeah. You? Oh, dude, come on. Let's get excited. We got in the wagon. Woo! Taters. And the way that we did those sweet potatoes, we just used a landscape drill, and we put down our black plastic first with the holes spaced appropriately for sweet potato vines. But then we drilled down with that auger and made holes in the dirt, maybe 3 inches in diameter, and then filled each one of those holes with really good quality compost that we make back there. Then planted those sweet potato slips in the compost that we had filled those holes with, and they did incredible. We did give up some, had some damage from the voles, but you know, that's all right. I would estimate, we've estimated we'll have sweet potatoes probably at least once a week for the next year. We have so many. It was such a good harvest, and so we'll definitely try that method again. But what I wanted to talk about over here, in addition to the sweet potatoes, was the way that we manage the garden throughout the year and the cycles here. You know, we get the cover crop in, get the living root in the soil, let that overwinter, and then come about March, when all the grass is still dormant, nothing is really growing yet. This will be nice and grown up, nice and green, and we'll bring the sheep in here and we'll graze down this overwintering mix. Let them graze it all the way down to the ground, and we hay the sheep. We hay the sheep right on the garden here, and so we put that hay down, that biomass, and I got this seed coming up in here, but you can see, if I dig back, there's just a thatch layer down here that's just thick black, just black dirt, black earth, and that's where that thatch, that hay, is sat there, you know, and rotted. You know, after the sheep graze it down, then we bring the chickens behind the sheep and we feed them out through that chicken tractor, and those chickens are going to harrow, and as those chickens harrow, they do a section, and then we come right behind the chickens and we lay that black plastic down. Okay, and you've got that harrowing mixed in there with that chicken manure, and so you've got really 3 things adding fertility here in that late winter, early spring. You know, you've got the sheep and the hay going down, and all the manure and urine there, and then you've got the chickens coming behind them. Don't deal with any weeds with the black plastic. It's not like I'm a huge fan of you know, putting plastic on the garden. I'm not, but this system works so well. We're able to reuse the plastic, you know, from year to year, and just had, you know, a lot of success. So just a system in our context here that we've found that works really well. Again, tapping into that principle of trying to have a living root in the soil for as much of the year as we can. I think that helps. My wife was even making comments where we had done that cover crop on that side last year. Stuff just did so well. You know, we're not sure if it was the cover crop or you know, on the drainage, things kind of drain that way, right? So could be a little more moisture that way. I don't know, but it's a system that has seemed to work for us here. You know, it seems like in the beginning, when you start a farm, especially regeneratively, it just seems like for every 10 failures, you may have one success. It seems like that's the way it's been for us out here. But the more that we do this, the more that I'm discovering just a joy in the ability to embrace the different seasons and the different cycles, and, you know, finding things that work within those different cycles. For instance, you know, compost, and I've talked to some of you in the comments about our Johnson Sioux compost that we do. We'll probably do a video on that at some point here. You know, in the fall, when the leaves fall, collecting those, chopping them up, making a compost that a static compost pile that sits all year, you know, and then harvesting that right now, right before the next year when leaves start to fall again, and you've got this beautiful, beautiful black, rich compost. Matter of fact, I'm right here. Let's go over and look at it. So this isn't really much to look at here with all the plastic. It's been sitting here a year, but I mean, look at this. Just, we've got a whole huge thing of this. Now this bin was upright, you know, it looked more like that one there. So over time, you know, it sinks, but we've got massive amounts of compost right now. You know, so I think it becomes about, you know, finding this natural rhythm that works with the seasons that you can do every year. And there's just such a joy, and even a, you know, what's the word? A continued success, maybe, when you work with the seasons. It's just not monotonous. It's not boring, you know, because you're doing something different. But I think finding these things throughout the year that just work because of the natural cyclical nature of the seasons. You know, maple syrup. We start out our year with maple syrup, right? And then you get into lambing, you know, and then we get into the garden season, and we're starting seeds, you know, right in there, right between maple syrup and lambing, you know, starting the garden seeds, you know, and then from there you get into garden, and then we start to get into the grazing season, you know, and then fall comes and we're into leaves and compost. And you know, to me, there's just such a common sense, just a refreshing nature to working in season and with the seasons. And then there's a bountiful, plentiful, abundant harvest there as well. But I think my encouragement is to those of you, and I talk to you, you know, every week, just starting out, looking for that piece of ground, you know, trying to get on it. You've got these, you know, these hopes and these dreams that are awesome. Sink into those seasons. Take time to look and observe throughout the year, the different seasons, and what works in your context and what doesn't. If I could talk to myself 7 years ago, I think I would emphasize that, work in season. Okay, so we've had these guys over here for quite some time. We've done some haying out on this hillside here, put down a little fertility, and they're just ready. They're ready to move. I really don't want to be feeding hay right now if we don't have to. So we need to get them out of here, up through that gate and on back to paddock 1 here. Let's get them on the move. Come on, Em. They know the drill. Come on, Joey calf. Let's go get some good grass. Okay, so paddock 1 here, it has been 40 days since we've come on to paddock 1. You can see just not a whole lot going down here, although it is exciting. I was looking at this earlier. All of these little green sprigs here, that's all of our rye. All of our rye that we sowed, and you can still see the seeds down in there. A lot of those have sprouted and given us some extra greens out here. Not a whole lot of moisture this year though. They've got this wooded section down in here too, that they'll be down eating some leaves off the honeysuckle and getting some browse. But you know, we'll do daily moves over here. So we'll stay on this for about a day here, and then we'll head over to paddock 2. And yeah, you guys know paddock 1 here, especially this section here. We got some better growth up that way, but this section's always been just not so great. So that's why we sowed that cover. See what that does over the winter here, trying to keep both these paddocks are bad, and trying to keep our roosters on that side, moving them through that chicken tractor to put down some fertility up that way. You see we got some longer stuff up this way. Not too bad. You know what? We got a bunch of cover crop up here. And I was talking to Sam. I don't remember sowing this. You know, it's like some brassicas here. I don't know where in the world that would have come from. If the birds maybe got a hold of some of that seed and dropped it over here. But you can see it. It's all over in here. That's all right with me. So I've been running the birds over through this section here. And, you know, again, Paddock 8 here and paddock 1 are kind of our two worst paddocks here. Some corn being grown here before we bought the place, and trying to rehab these two sections here. Everywhere else we've had a lot of chickens and turkeys and stuff running up there by the coop, and it's just quite a bit more fertile up in those areas. Okay, we're in here on the hay bales. We got this chart set up. This is primarily what I wanted to talk about today. Back in the 1960s, there was a gentleman named G.O. Mott, and he was at the University of Florida, did a lot of research on grazing, and he came up with this chart here. Basically, your x-axis is your stocking rate, your y-axis is your gain, your animal gain, and he's got kind of two different things drawn out here on this graph. Your first in red here is your gain per head. So your pounds of gain per individual animal, and you can see how that declines as you increase stocking rate. The second line is your gains per acre. So that goes up and then comes back down. You know, as you increase stocking rate, in other words, you increase your gains to a certain extent, and then you start to decrease your gains per acre. So what Mott said is that your optimal zone for your optimal stocking rate is right where the two meet, right in here. I think what I find particularly fascinating, and it took me a long time to understand this, but I have observed this, is that if you keep your stocking rate very, very low, let's say we run one animal on 20 acres of pasture out here, you're going to have incredible individual gains on that animal. Your gains are going to be better than if that animal was in a rotation with other animals. Okay, so if you were rotating that animal, your gains would not be as high as if that animal was by itself, a very low stocking rate. Why? Because the animals will selectively graze. They're going to eat only what they want. They're going to eat all the time. And so, generally speaking, we could probably say set stock grazing or under grazing. We'll just say UG here, undergrazed is back towards this way. And then you get out here and you're overgrazed as we go this way. Okay, so you're not very economical here, but over here you're tanking because you have too many animals out on pasture. And so I think it's interesting to look at in terms of our context here and what I've seen. Keep stocking rate low, your individual gains are going to be up, but if you want to manage holistically, be utilizing and stewarding the ground in the best way possible, in my opinion, you need to increase that stocking rate. And as you increase that stocking rate, the animals are going to, eat more of each area down, and your gains per acre are most certainly going to go up. But with rotating allows you to keep a higher stocking rate. You're going to have additional labor, but again, you're going to maximize. Let's talk about maximize. Why not stay out in here? Why not stay out in here if we want to maximize my marker quit? If we want to maximize our gains per acre, why not right at the top here? Well, because you give up individual animal performance to be. If you're going to be out in here, then you're going to be down in here on individual animal performance. You don't want to give up that much. So staying in this optimal range. Look up Mott for yourself, Geo Mott, and some pretty interesting information on grazing. Looking over these pastures, these paddocks here, as we moved on to paddock 1, as we continue to come this way here, looking at what we've got, this paddock, all the paddocks on this side have not been touched with a mower yet this year. And I mean, look at this. We've got a few scragglers here and there, the blue flowers, but those are chicory. And I want those. I want those there. Look at this. Look at the stand of grass in here. Just incredible. I mean, you don't see a bunch of, multiflora rose. You don't see a whole lot of spiny amaranth. Just not a whole lot of weedy weedy stuff. Again, moving this way, I guess, okay, there's a thistle there, to be fair. But moving this way, you know, the scraggly stuff, that's the chicory. You know, we want that. We want that chicory. That's a good anthelmint, natural anthelmintic. We want that. A lot of people sow that in their pastures even, so I want to hang on to that. But, you know, have not mowed, and, you know, really not a need to. You know, looking at this. Now, we've been dry, and we are not as recovered as what I'd like to see. But, you know, let's walk over here and compare this to the section of our farm that's been set stock grazed. You can see here, this is one of the pasture sections. That's my cover crop back there, so ignore that. But this is one of the pasture sections that's been set stock grazed. And I mean, look at this. You've got spiny amaranth, you've got thistle that's gone to seed. It's just, I mean, it's thick, it's all over. And the good stuff, the grazable stuff, it's down to a putting green. I mean, if not below that. I mean, you can see bare dirt here. Just not a profitable way to manage your grazing for the long term. Certainly not. And again, when we talk about set stock grazing, you know, there's this tendency to believe that you have less time in set stock grazing than you do in rotational grazing. Well, I can tell you, if you're going to keep up, you're going to maintain pastures with set stock grazing, meaning that if you want any kind of time, okay, we'll walk back this way while we're doing that, any kind of time duration to graze, meaning, you know, years or decades that you want to continue, see the spiny amaranth, then you have to maintain your pastures if you set stock graze, which means you have to be out here in our area mowing, I would say, at least 3 times a year. You know, and we've got, you know, about 14 acres that we're set stocking, that we rent the ground out to set stock. And so, you know, you do the math, you know, bringing even if you've got a 6-7 foot bush hog, hogging this out, you know, 3 times a year, you're going to have some time in 14 acres, for sure. Again, this area is all set stocked. I mean, look at this. What multiflora rows, maybe. I apologize for the wind here, but you know, cattle aren't going to come anywhere near that. And this is, you know, this is everywhere out here in the sections that aren't eaten down to putting green, just completely overgrazed and you know, out of grass. You know, he's out of grass back here, and he has been for quite some time. We actually hired a gentleman to bush hog all this when we first purchased the farm here, and it was interesting. Of course, he didn't have big equipment. He had a smaller to mid-sized John Deere tractor, but he only had a 4-foot bush hog, and it took him an entire weekend, right? More than 2 8-hour days to cut all of this pasture and to bush hog it. And so, you know, you do that math, and you're going to cut this, 3 times in a season to try and keep up and knock the weeds back if you're set stock grazing. And you know, out here, you're looking at probably 50 hours, you know, to complete that. And that's, you're burning fuel, you're putting hours on a tractor, you know, you're not making meat. You're doing the exact opposite, really. And so, you know, that's just one of the necessary evils to set stock grazing that I feel like is so often overlooked, is you have to mow to knock the weeds back, to knock back what your cattle are not consuming and what they're not going to consume, because they're not clamped down and they're not eating everything in the paddock. Okay, so back here with the sheep on the swale, we still have this going on, and it has been just wildly successful beyond what I thought it would be. You can see we're well over halfway down through here. Again, I got a straggler down there I need to trim, a little tree, but you know, just coming behind them with a light I guess you call it a weed eating. But I tell you, the thing that I'm most impressed with, it's the body condition of these sheep. Absolutely incredible. I'm even questioning now, you know, can we can we get sheep too fat? Too fat moving into breeding. I don't think that's possible, but I mean, look how big she is. Just incredible. And they're gaining out on these weeds, you know, goldenrod, ironweed. I mean, you got some grass and brush down in here, but it's primarily just weedy crud. Just looking great body condition. I don't know that I've ever seen these sheep. Look at her. I don't know that I've ever seen these sheep in that good of this good of body condition, to be honest. So I'm a big fan of this swale grazing here. You know, you can see where we've been, and that'll all grow back. This opens this up for him to do a little more hay even. You know, next spring this will all be grown back. He can come down in here a little farther. You know, I think long-term wise, I would love to see this not be so much of a ditch here and be able to hay the entire thing. You know, I was told, you know, bringing in a bulldozer and just pushing the dirt kind of from both sides and evening it out would be the way to go. The problem with that is, you know, you'd need to get something down on the new dirt then that was pushed down in here. You'd have to get something to sprout quick, right, before you got the rain and the water moving down through here. It's just going to wash out again. But you know, that's a pretty big cut coming right down through there. It's down to bedrock. So fixing that and fixing some of this stuff. But this was really the first step here, is getting this cut back, getting it knocked back. And I've just been tickled pink with how this has gone. No real coyote evidence or pressure that that we know of. You got the woods right there. That was a big concern. Haven't really had much rain, so the rain's held off for us as we have stayed down in here. And no problems with anything toxic, milkweed or poison hemlock or any of that, though that's in here. It's just not been an issue. So this has been a huge success. Sheep grazing the swale. I tell you, being around all this ditch grass back here, I call it ditch grass. That's what it is. It's all this crud in the ditch that we're seeing all these incredible gains off of. It makes me think about all the wasted space that we have around this country. You don't talk to me about deficits and debt and this and that when you've got, just take Route 70 for example. Route 70 is what, 2,000 miles, over 2,000 miles long, probably closer to 2,200 miles. Just say conservatively you've got 50 feet of median in between that highway. And I know there's context here. I know this would be challenging, but look at those numbers. I mean, that's if you have 50 feet in between with 2,000 miles of space, you've got 12,000 acres there. 12,000 acres, put 6 sheep an acre on 12,000 acres, right? 72,000 sheep. That's a lot of animals. Take 72,000, multiply it by $500 a ewe. I mean, that's what these ewes are worth. That's what they sell for here on our farm. That's $36 million. $36 million on the space in between the highway. Here's my question to you, is who's going to disrupt that industry? Who's going to come in and disrupt the mowing, in the just use a depreciating asset and blow grass everywhere? Somebody's going to do it, I'm telling you. Somebody out there listening to me, you're going to run with it. There's got to be a way. I know there's challenges. You'd have to get water out there and this and that, and containing sheep and even accidents. And I'm sure there would have to be a lot that you work around. But even just part of that space, 72,000 sheep times 100 pounds of sheep. I mean, you're looking at over 7 million pounds of animal on that 12,000 acres. All kinds of possibilities. There's all kinds of wasted space, not to mention the American lawn. I'm not touching that today. Anyhow, just something to think on. One of the wisest words of advice I was ever given by an old farmer. He's since passed away. He looked at me and he said, just do a little bit each day. Do a little bit each day. And it's so simple, but it's so profound. And at times it's really hard to do. Having the discipline to not do too much, but to still do a little bit, and to do that each day that's a challenge. That's a challenge, and I think that's really, when I look at our grazing methods and strategy, that's really what it comes back to for me. Doing a little bit each day, moving them every day. You know, we spend probably no more than 10 minutes a day moving them into a new paddock, getting water set up, moving mineral, versus putting 50 hours on a machine and cutting and bush hogging. I'm not saying there's no value to mowing. There is. Mowing can open up a canopy. It can thicken up a stand. But when you're trying to just manage weeds with a depreciating asset, we choose not to do that here so far. And going forward, as we continue to expand our operation, I would very much like to maintain that same approach. And I think we can. But, you know, a lot of it's about context. It's about what you have the time for when and the discipline for, and, you know, just how you want to steward your land in the best way to do that. I'm certainly a fan of rotational grazing, but I know each individual farmer, you know, you have to choose what works for you in your context. And so anyhow, I hope this has been helpful. I hope you're having a great day, you're blessed, and you're at peace. And we'll talk to you next time. Take care.